Hello and welcome to the Nerdiest podcast, episode 17. And in today's episode, I have a banger of an episode for you guys. We're going to be talking about Invincible. Mainly the Invincible show, the animated show, and season 4 of the animated Invincible show. We're going to go over some story plots that are in the comics, some things that I'm expecting to see, some things that I want to see, some characters being introduced, how they're going to be introduced, some things that I would like to see from season 4 of Invincible, and yeah, just an overall thoughts of the show and Invincible as a whole. So we're going to be talking about Thragg, we're going to be talking about Omni-Man, Alan the Alien, Mark Grayson, Atom Eve, Oliver, and some more characters, Battle Beast, and just the Invincible universe, comics, show, all of it as a whole in this episode of the Nerdiest podcast. So yeah, strap in guys, because it's going to be an awesome topic. Let's go. So, as you guys know, on the Nerdiest podcast, I talk about all things comics, shows, TV, movies. And in today, we've got a very special one because we're talking about Invincible, which is a very famous show and a very famous comic book series. So it's a very early 2000s comic book by Image Comics, Robert Kirkman, Ryan Ottley, and Cory Walker. Those are the main creators, obviously Robert Kirkman being the writer of the Invincible series. He wrote The Walking Dead, and he also worked on other projects with Image. He's a very iconic comic book creator. And yeah, he created the best superhero comic in the universe, Invincible. In the early 2000s, he created it as a comic book series, and I fell in love with it when I first read it. It was one of my dad's favorite comic book series, but truth be told, I didn't know much about it before I got into comics. So before I got into comics, I was watching the show. So my first exposure to the Invincible series was the TV show. I think many people's, especially for modern audiences, was the Invincible show. Obviously, season 1 was a massive success for the animated show, and for the comics as well. I think they reprinted the comics in compendiums for those audiences looking to get into the comic book series, and yeah. So obviously, if you have a hit TV show and you have a hit comic book series, that's really awesome because it's gonna they boost the other, right? So if you read the comics, you now know what's going to happen in the show, so you're going to watch on to see how it compares. And yeah, so that's what I'm going to do today with season 4. So we have had season 1, 2, 3, and now we're on season 4, which releases on March 17th, 2025. Oh wait, no, not 2025, 2026. So March 17th, 2026 is when season 4 of Invincible comes out. Yeah, so let's do like a little bit of a recap of the previous seasons of what happened in this show. So in season 1, it set up the characters, it set up Omni-Man, Invincible, their relationship as father and son, and, you know, it was very faithful to the comic book series. I think it's probably one of the most faithful comic book projects ever. I mean, it does add certain things, as I will get into later in the episode, but that is because it's a TV show. It needs those sort of subplots. It needs those sort of filler episodes to fill in the gaps of, you know, the 8 episode or 9 episode seasons, right? But season 1 was probably my favorite. It set up the show. There were so many plots, twists, and, you know, it was a good time being a fan of the show. You know, it was very niche, the comic book, before the show. And I think the show really revamped the whole universe as a whole. And I think it worked really well, especially that first season as an animated show, right? It had its own style, and it was doing its own thing of obviously being inspired by the comics. But yeah, that first season will always go down as one of my favorite of the show because it just sets it up really well, and that twist at the end and the ending and finale is very iconic and just very well done in my opinion. It translates what the comics really well. It translates it really well. Season 2 was sort of like the show was becoming more popular, and it took a while for season 2 to come out, and season 3, I think there are gaps between the seasons. There was quite a lot, because obviously when you have an animated show, it takes a while to animate it, right, frame by frame. And I think in season 1, they sort of maybe didn't expect that much acclaim to this first season. I don't think many people thought it would be that much of a success, you know. So I think I'm not going to say they rushed it, but they sort of like maybe wasn't expecting it to be that big of a show. And so when it got renewed for season 2 and 3, I think they were just panicking to get it out on time. But yeah, I love the show, and season 1 will always be my favorite. So season 2 went over, I'm trying to think of what season 2 went over. So after, it goes over sort of like the, him becoming invincible on his own without Nolan, who is Omni-Man. And it's just sort of more of like that fall off from season 1's finale, right? And then in season 3 was another great big season for the show. I think it got a lot of traction for what they did on the show. They did the Invincible War, which is one of the biggest wars in the Invincible comic. I will be getting into another war, the Viltrumite War, very shortly, but that's not until season 4. So season 3 was the Invincible War, which was the Invincible variants. I think that's probably the strongest, like, appeal to the franchise, is the idea of variants of yourself coming to kill you, and there's different types of variants. I think that's the appeal of it, the whole multiverse thing. But apparently to the fans, it divided the fans, right? How they sort of approached the Invincible War from the comics and to the show. It was sort of translated maybe a little bit weaker than people thought. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Antrim Levy stuff. But you know, it divided a lot of people on like the comics. Obviously with the comics, you have a lot more time than animation. So they had time to flesh out some of the, I think the show fleshed out the variants a lot more, because when you're showing characters on screen, you have to sort of flesh them out a little bit. But with the comic, I think it just worked a little bit well as the format of a comic book story. I don't know what went wrong with there. I don't think anything went wrong there. I think it was just like, it's going to be different at the end of the day. They have to change a few things, at the end of the day, right? And they need to erase some things from the comics that may be too, I'm not going to say too violent, but maybe too filler, right? Yeah, you know. In the comics, the Invincible War was a lot fleshed out. It was a lot more fleshed out. You know, you had it was more of like an image war, because you had other image IPs, in the comic book fighting these Invincible variants. So you had Spawn fighting one, you had Wolfman fighting one, you had other characters, you had, an Invincible variant go to Spider-Man's universe, you had an Invincible variant go to, The Walking Dead, which they included in the show, obviously. But yeah, you know, that's the thing. They have to remove some things, such as Spawn's cameo, and, you know, the one thing that I did not like them removing was the, I can't remember his name. What's his name? Jack Flag. I think that's his name. There was a Jack Flag cameo in Invincible, which was very cool. I love that. I love Jack Flag, and I love Paul Gerst as an artist and creator of that character. But like I say, nobody probably would know who Jack Flag. He's not very well known, and obviously then you need to get the rights to use that character in the show. And I think they just didn't want to bother with that. Obviously, I understand that it's a different time now, but like, yeah. So that was the Invincible War in season 3, and then at the end of season 3, they sort of introduced Conquest, and the Conquest fight started. And that was a very cool bit of the show. I really loved how they animated that fight. I could tell they put a lot of effort into that finale. Conquest was voiced by Negan, who was Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who was Negan in the Walking Dead show. That's a very bold choice. He doesn't have that deep voice I think Conquest maybe should have had, but I think it works he has a very villainous voice and accent. So now we're at the end of season 3, and Mark has just beat the living crap out of Conquest. Atom Eve has been beaten up. They're all sort of beaten up. Oliver's beaten up, right? So in the show now, it's like at this point where they're all at their lowest. You just had an Invincible War and you had to fight Conquest. Mark Grayson, who is the main character, who is invincible, has gone through it. He's sort of now at his low point, right? Is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't think it is. It's just the story, and I think it's just how the characters evolve. It shows evolution, right? So now we're up to season 4, which is due to be out on March 17th. And in the comics, we are up to issue 65 or 66 of the Invincible series. So it's from now, you would think it would get, a little slow, but it doesn't. It doesn't slow down. It goes straight into some really cool stuff that I'm about to talk about right now. The Invincible, season 4 is, the one I'm most excited for. I'm not gonna lie, because they have loads of characters they need to introduce. They have a whole story arc that they need to, I think they need to do it justice. Let's just talk about it. Let's get right into Invincible. So the big plot that I wanted to talk about was the Viltrumite War in season 4. And I want that to be the star of the season. I want them to focus all their effort on doing the Viltrumite War, right? So if you guys don't know what the Viltrumite War is, if you don't know what a Viltrumite is, you should probably go watch the show, because it explains it really, really well. I'm not going to explain it, because you should know, if you're clicking onto this podcast episode, what a Viltrumite is. But the Viltrumite War, I will mention now, there might be spoilers for season 4, because I will be talking about the comics, and obviously they're taking things from the comics series into the show, so it's gonna probably be pretty accurate. So let's talk about the Viltrumite War. So the Viltrumite War is I want that to be the biggest plot of season 5. I want them to put all of their effort into season 5, obviously, but into the Viltrumite War, because it's such a strong arc for these characters and for the series as a whole. It's probably one of my favorite wars, right? You have the Invincible War, you have the Viltrumite War, you have the Conquest fight, but I feel like the Viltrumite War is so iconic, and so it just shows what the show is all about, right? So I'm just going to quickly go over the Viltrumite War. Basically, it's a war against the Viltrumites, and it's about Mark Grayson, Oliver, and Nolan, who is now reformed as obviously he's not Omni-Man anymore from season 1, which I really like that, showing him evolve as a character. I think that's really cool. We'll get into individual characters later, because they will have their own sort of subplots and arcs that they go through that I would like to talk about. So it's Mark Grayson, it's Nolan, it's Oliver, and it's Alan the Alien, Battle Beast, and some other ones that you'll learn if you watch the show or have read the series. But those are the main guys fighting these Viltrumites who are corrupted, and they sort of, obviously Viltrumites go around conquering planets, destroying them all, killing them all. And yeah. So if you did not know, in season 3, obviously Nolan and Alan escape the Viltrumite prison, and Nolan drops the bomb that there is only a handful of Viltrumites left, because for centuries people believed that there was a whole planet full of Viltrumites. But the Viltrumites are struggling to breed, and they are struggling to... I don't think it's necessarily to breed. I think it's sort of like they can't... Because they're conquering planets, they need to find a planet that they can breed with, right? So that they can make more pure-blooded Viltrumites like... Invincible, right? Of course. I want them to focus on the Viltrumite War. I want it to be epic and violent. And I want the animation for season 4 be at the best that we've seen it, especially during the fight scenes and the Viltrumite War itself. I want them to really spend time on the Viltrumite War, right? So it's making me think of that Conquest fight with Invincible fighting Conquest. And there's a certain bit where his hair is just like really animated nicely, and that's the animation that I want to see in season 4, especially in those fight scenes, in space when they're fighting the Viltrumites with Alan and Omni-Man and Oliver. I want them to just have that really cool sort of animation style, not PNG, quote unquote PNG animation, right? So yeah, I just want them to focus on the Viltrumite War. So they fight these Viltrumites, and Oliver gets injured. I'm not going to just try and spoil the whole show, but I would like to just see these epic fights and epic moments in the comic come to the big screen. And one moment, talk about epic fights, I want to see Conquest v Invincible 2.0. They fight again in the Viltrumite War, in the beginning of the Viltrumite War. So it's revealed that Conquest, obviously at the end of season 3, we see Conquest's head on Earth, right? Underground. I want to see, and he leaves, and he's rebuilt his body and he leaves, right? So he's alive, yeah? I want to see that fight be animated awesome, obviously, but I also want to see it ripped straight from the comics, which I know they like doing, but they also do change a little bit of it. I think it's such a strong fight between Invincible and Conquest. I just really do dig it, and the way it ends as well, it's really awesome. It's Conquest finally beaten, quote unquote beaten. He's kind of invincible himself, but and it's Invincible beaten as well. He's like, wrist is broken, his neck's all bleeding, he's lost loads of teeth, as you would fight in Conquest. But this is a pivotal moment for the Viltrumite War. It's what causes them to delay the war, sort of to help heal Invincible. And I think it's a very important, especially for the Viltrumite War, but for the story pacing, I think they need that bit where he's like sort of injured. And yeah, let's continue through the story of it. So as Invincible's sort of out for the count, Oliver and Omni-Man have this nice bonding session. I can't wait to see that. I love Oliver as a character, and I think he's going to be great in the future of the series. But as this is all happening, as we've seen at the end of season 3, Battle Beast is recovered from his fight with that Viltrumite at the escape of the Viltrumite prison, and he joins arms with Omni-Man, Oliver, Tech Jackets, and, they fight against the Viltrumites when, obviously, Invincible wakes up, right? So yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how they transcribe some of this comic to the show. And another big aspect of the Viltrumite War is Thragg, who, like I said, I will go over every character. So Thragg, Adam, Eve, Oliver, Dinosaurus, and Omni-Man, and I will go over every character in depth because they all have subplots that I think will be scattered throughout the whole main Viltrumite War plot, right? So in the Viltrumite War, we are introduced to the Emperor of the Viltrumites at the time, Thragg, who is he's the mastermind behind the Viltrumites and the Viltrumite War. And, you know, as the Viltrumite War becomes more tense, so does the tension between Thragg and the other Viltrumites. And it's really awesome. I love him as a character. I think he's really awesome and very scary. He's the scariest Viltrumite, which is crazy because he doesn't look scary, but because he's the leader of these evil conquerors, he is, right? And, you know, I'm probably going to miss a few things, so take this all with a grain of salt. But I'm just going to talk about some things that I like and from the comics that I want to see in the show, and some things that I want to see and how I want them to transcribe the comic to the show, right? So yeah. One thing that I'm looking forward to is the Omni-Man, Oliver, or Kid Omni-Man, and Invincible dynamic. I think that would be awesome to see on the big screen. We haven't really seen that. We've seen, obviously, Invincible fighting Omni-Man and Omni-Kid fighting with Invincible, and we've seen them team up, but to have the trio of father, son, and son, right? That would be really cool, I think. And awesome. Fighting Viltrumites as well would be awesome. So, and it gets to a climax at the end of this issue right here, where Thragg and the other Viltrumites chase after the Graysons, and the climax is the big fight at the end, where they fight in space, which is in issue 75 of Invincible. This is where the Viltrumite War, in my opinion, this is where it needs to be perfected, because it's the big climax where they all fight in space. You have the team of, oh man, this splash page is awesome. We have Tech Jacket, which is another character that I cannot wait to see more of in the Invincible show. We've seen him in season 3, but he was very underused in the Invincible War compared to how he was used in the comics. We have Tech Jacket, obviously. We have Mark Grayson Invincible fighting alongside Omni-Man, who is now the reformed Omni-Man. He's sort of seen the error of his ways, which I think the show did really well in season 3 when he was in the prison. I really liked how they reformed him. We obviously have Alan the Goat. I love Alan. Alan the Alien. We have Kid Omni-Man, aka Oliver, who, as I talked about earlier, I really like his character. I think it's pretty awesome. And then you have Battle Beast, and I can't remember that alien's name. He's got like 3 eyes and is green. But he has the rifle, the Viltrumite rifle that can kill Viltrumites. So yeah, that's the team that they're going up against, Thragg and the other Viltrumites. Oh, and also the, what's his name? The, Thedas? He's like the oldest Viltrumite, right? He reveals himself as the Viltrumite, which I think is a pretty cool bit of the comic. Was that in the show? I can't remember. I think that guy's name was Space Racer, right? He has that space ship with the gun and the jetpack. So it all climaxes to this massive, brutal fight of Invincible fighting Thragg, Oliver getting his ass whooped by Thragg. It shows how big of a threat Thragg is. And then obviously because Oliver's getting his ass whooped by Thragg, Omni-Man gets involved, and it's just Invincible and Omni-Man beating down Thragg. And it's just a sick sequence. And then obviously, boom, they blow up. I think they blow up viltrum, right? The viltrum planet. They like all soar into the planet. I don't know how they're going to transcribe that to the show, but that's pretty cool. Yeah, the Viltrumite Empire falls, and that's obviously going to leave them Thragg enraged, right? So yeah, the Viltrumite War is basically Viltrumites versus Viltrumites, and at the end of it, they all die. Well, the Viltrum Empire is blown to pieces, so every Viltrumite from now on is dead. Well, no, technically not. There is obviously a few that remain. Thragg, Oliver, Invincible. And it's just a sick bit in the comic, and I hope they can make Thragg this menacing, badass. He's so badass that he rips this guy's head off with so much low effort, right? I think that's going to be hard to sort of try and... Because you've got Omni-Man, you've got Invincible, you've got Battle Beast. How can you match that and make them have a threatening villain, right? One thing that I will mention now is in that whole fight, they are in space. They are in space, and they talk using their minds. And now it works in a comic book because you can use thought bubbles, right? I don't know how they're going to transcribe that to the show. You know, it's going to be difficult to have a fight scene of them talking when they're talking in their heads. Obviously that then can be an excuse for them not to draw them or animate the mouths. Obviously the mouths, right? They could just, it's a way to get around that and speed up that whole thing and just focus on the fights. That's what I want them to do. I think the worst thing that they could do is rush the fight and rush the stakes that and the threat that Thragg and the other Viltrumites bring to the team, right? Because if you mess that up, you're going to mess up the rest of the show. You need to have the Viltrumites be this massive fight. And one thing that I will say now is I want them to wrap up the Viltrumite War in season 4. I don't want them to leave it on a cliffhanger or do any stupid crap like they did before. Just because I feel like the pacing of that would be would be much better than just having it stop at the end of season 4 and then season 5 picks up with, you know, the fight continuing. I want them to fit in, not rush, but fit in the Viltrumite War into season 4. And I want them to end the season off with Thragg's deal, which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, in issue 78 of Invincible, Thragg makes a deal with Invincible and Nolan as to protect Earth. So he's giving them the deal that they integrate the remaining Viltrumites onto Earth and allow them to breed with humans to create the pure blood Viltrumites. And if they say no to that, then they're going to destroy the planet. Which in my opinion doesn't make much sense, because you found a planet that can breed Viltrumites and you're going to destroy it? Like, yeah, no, you're not going to destroy that, buddy. So I think it was just sort of maybe like a bit of bluff, but I don't know. We'll see how they do that in the show. It might make more sense in the show to me. So yeah, after the Viltrumite War, I hope they do chuck in that little scene, and I think this is where the season will end. I know we just started the podcast episode talking about the end, but the Viltrumite War goes straight into in my mind, it goes straight into the end of season 4, I hope. And then at the end of season 4, we see some of the subplots come together, which we'll talk about right now. Let's talk about some of the subplots that I want to see in season 4. So we've got the big plot of the Viltrumite War. I want that to be the big focus of the season, right? So some subplots include the newly introduced Hell War, which is a cut comic story. So it's a cut comic arc from the original story, which was cut from the series, that is now being implemented into the show. I don't know why it was cut for the first place. Maybe something to do with scheduling or something like that, or restrictions within the comic. But yeah, so we're going to see a cut story of Invincible into season 4, which is if you watch the end of season 3, you'll see that there's the Damien Darkblood character talking to another character about the hell, like hell, and it's like a hell war thing, and they're going after Invincible's powers, I think it was. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's a way to introduce Dinosaurus. So Dinosaurus is going to be in season 4. We've seen him in the trailer. He looks really awesome. His voice actor is perfect, I think. But yeah, Dinosaurus in the comics, I don't know much about him, but he is like this dinosaur who just basically tries to kill Invincible. Like I said, I haven't read the whole of Invincible, so I'm not quite sure what his role is. I'm excited to see in the show what he does. But I think this subplot of the Damien Darkblood Hell War thing is just a way to introduce Dinosaurus into the show, because he was introduced in the comics quite fast and it doesn't really make sense how he was introduced. So I think that's just a little bit of a subplot that they're going to introduce over the course of season 4. Another subplot is Atom Eve, and her powers going wrong. Obviously at the end of season 3, we saw, and in the trailer for season 4, we see that Atom Eve's powers are sort of messing up and possibly going wrong, right? Definitely going wrong. She melts Mark's blue suit at the end of season 3, so I think this is just all due to the fact that she's pregnant, right? It's just teasing that subplot is coming. So in the comics, Atom Eve is pregnant with Invincible's son. So that's a big plot for Atom Eve's character. So obviously in the Viltrumite War, Invincible and everyone like that, they leave Earth to go and fight in space, right? So all that time, Earth is sort of, she's left, Atom Eve's left on Earth. And I don't know how they're going to sort of transition between Viltrumite War and Earth in the show. I don't know if it's going to be split up or if they're going to do it the whole of the Viltrumite War back to back and then all of the Earth stuff. I think they're probably just going to split it between, right? That makes more sense. Hopefully it isn't too distracting to the Viltrumite War. I want that to shine a lot like. And yeah, so another subplot that I'm excited to see. So early in the season, I think they're going to do maybe episode 2 is the Alan, Alien, and Omni-Man stuff, where they go to the Coalition of Planets, I think it's called, and they say to them about what Nolan knows about how many Viltrumites are left, right? That's going to be awesome to see in the show, because that starts the Viltrumite War, right? It shows the people that there's not actually a lot of Viltrumites left, and that they have an opening to take them down. And obviously Omni-Man and Alan, the alien, track down the space racer and things that the Viltrumites aren't. Some things that are like anti-Viltrumites to try and kill them, right? Yeah. I think that's going to be cool to see. Yeah. So like I said, Thragg, I think he needs to be the biggest character. He needs to shine really well. There are other subplots that that are probably going to show up, but you know, it's just subplots. I want to focus on the big beefy stuff of the book, and just I want to see the Viltrumite War. It's the most exciting thing for me. So you have Thragg, you have Conquest, it's going to take a while for them to, I think the majority of the season will be Viltrumite War, due to the fact that there is a lot to cover in the Viltrumite War, So, yeah, I want to see, so much cool stuff for this season. I think they, are finding their groove with the animation. I think they said that the animation is going to be improving for this next season and for the future of the show. The show is obviously going to evolve. The more time you spend animating, the better the product is going to be, right? This is going to be the season that I think is going to be maybe one of the best. If they do it right, they could make this a really, I think maybe they can make this on par with season 1, right? It has the potential, it has the story, it has the bones to be really incredible. There's so much story plots that, we've already talked about, but there are a few more that I want to talk about. Universa is going to be added in season 4. She's sort of like this, sort of energy absorber. She's a bit of a mystery character, but she's going to be voiced by Denai Guerrera, which is really awesome to me because I love The Walking Dead. She was in the MCU as well as a Wakanda soldier, but I really love The Walking Dead. Michonne, she played Michonne in that show, and it just fills me with joy that some of these Walking Dead actors and actresses are getting the chance to voice some of my favorite comic book characters from Invincible. It gives me hope that maybe one day we will see Daryl Dixon or Rick Grimes, voice actors in the Invincible universe. And it makes my mind wonder what characters would they play, in the future. We have to think about it. What characters are left, we've had Powerplex, we've had, is it Powerplex? It is, isn't it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. We've had Battle Beast, we've had Thragg, we've had Conquest. So who are these characters, if they were to be added, obviously, who would they play? That's really interesting to think about. Another subplot that's been going on since the first season, I want to say, or the second season, is the Martian, I don't know what they're called, bugs things that when they suck on your face, like the alien things. Those things have been present throughout the show. And at the end of season 3, we've seen that they're setting up issue 70, which in issue 70, I think this is probably going to be the opener for the season. In issue 70, those alien things are sort of it's the, what's the guy's name? Shapeshifter. He's the alien that sort of left them on the, it's kind of weird, right? I don't know where they're going to go with that story, but that story's been going on for a while. It's be interesting to see for sure, because it's been going on for ages, really. That whole story. So yeah, after the Viltrumite War, or during it's still the Viltrumite War, right? Obviously I talked about earlier Thraggs' deal with, Invincible and how they go to Earth. I think that whole sequence will be really interesting to see, because in the comics it's on the way home he's having these nightmares of Thragg conquering Earth and destroying his home planet, and he can't take it, and he jumps out of his ship and starts soaring towards Earth. It's really cool because it shows he's a bit scared of Thragg, Invincible, scared of what they're capable of doing. So yeah, that's really interesting. There's a lot of plots that I want to see what they do with them, right, in the show. You got the Viltrumite War, you've got the Hell War, you've got Eve's powers, you've got these really cool, epic and violent fights. I think if you animate really well, could be some of the best animated fight scenes in the show, 100%. You've got the Alan Alien and Omni-Man subplot. You've got the Universa subplot. You've got the Martian alien subplot. There's so much stuff that you have to try and fit in with this season, and it's kind of making me a bit nervous for season 4, because you're trying to fit stuff in, and you don't want to overlook everything or rush anything, like the Viltrumite War, because if you rush that, it kind of diminishes the whole point of the season. So my biggest worry is that they don't focus on the Viltrumite War and they maybe rush over it. I doubt that they will, but they maybe did that with the last Invincible War. Maybe just a little bit. They rushed over it and tried to fit in subplots within the season. But I think it stands on its own as pretty decent, for sure. So yeah. Let's talk about some other characters in the Invincible world that are slowly becoming more relevant to the show, and that will become relevant in the future of the show and in the comics, right? So obviously Oliver was introduced in season 2, I want to say. Yeah, season 2, I believe, near the end, as the love child between Omni-Man and the Bug Lady, and he's like this purple Viltrumite, and he ages really fast or something like crazy like that. I think it's pretty cool. I love his character in the comics. I like how he teams up with he's like the sort of like middle ground between Invincible and Omni-Man. Invincible sort of like against maybe Omni-Man at some points, especially in season 3. He was sort of very conflicted because obviously the last time he saw Omni-Man, he tried to kill Invincible, right? But oh wait, no, that's a lie. Obviously he saw him on the planet, yeah. I think he's a good character in the way that he represents each character, obviously Invincible and Omni-Man, and their beliefs, right? He's a young kid who grew up with his father believing that he's a good guy. He hasn't seen him destroy all of Earth, whereas Invincible has, and Invincible is now being sort of conflicted because his brother is saying, oh, he's not that bad, when in reality maybe it may have done that on accident and wasn't the best idea to do that, right? But like I said, he is a resolved character now, and I really like that for Nolan, him being sort of in season 1, at the end of season 1, he's very burdened with the guilt. He's burdened with the guilt of beating his son, right? And then in season 2, he's revealed to have completely sort of, in the show we've seen more from Nolan at that time. He obviously tried to commit. He tried to walk into the sun, which is pretty cool in my opinion, but, well, obviously not cool, but it's pretty badass walking into a sun. But yeah, he sort of redeems himself and builds a new family, which, is a bit controversial, but it's a way of showing him resolving himself. And then he realizes that he needs his sons, his sons aren't a sign of weakness. Showing love isn't a sign of weakness. It's him becoming a resolved Omni-Man, right? I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, Oliver in this season 4 trailer, he seems more older and more sort of into his own shoes, you know what I mean? He's becoming his own character, which I really enjoy. His whole arc in season 3 was awesome with the twins, right? The blue twins. I've got their name, but that was really awesome as well. Yeah, I'm excited, bro. I'm really excited for this season. I think it's going to be really great. If they stay faithful to the comics and up the ante on the animation, the effects, the voice acting, I think it's going to be awesome. I love this show, and I love the animation of the show. I don't really get the whole, like, it's trash. I don't think it's trash. I think it sort of works for what it is. I think people have to remember that the creative director on the show is Corey Walker, who is the artist in the early issues of Invincible. And in my opinion, I enjoy his art. So let's talk about, in this final bit right here, let's talk about the future of the Invincible show, and these characters, right? So, something that I think's most likely going to happen if season 4 is successful is we're going to see more spin-off shows for these characters. So, as you guys may or may not know, Battle Beast got his own solo series by Image Comics, with Ryan Ottley, the Invincible artist for most of its run, drawing the Battle Beast, and he's just going around planets trying to find the worthiest fighter that could take his life. That's the whole appeal of his character. So I think, like, if this season or in the next couple seasons do really well, so say season 5 gets renewed for season 5, and season 5 comes out, and, you know, it covers some really awesome stuff in there, and it's a success, it makes loads and loads of money, I feel like we can then, I think it would be safe to say that they will start greenlighting some potential spin-offs and some characters that could have their own solo series. So, for example, we've seen Atom Eve have their own sort of spin-off series for like a couple of episodes about her origin story. I could see maybe Rexplode or some of the Guardians of the Globe getting their own spin-off series. I could see Alan the Alien getting a spin-off series. I can see Battle Beast getting his own spin-off series like the comic books. I feel like that's very likely, obviously. They have enough, so for the show itself though, I think they have enough content to create a show maybe for like, maybe 10 seasons, I think that at the pace they're going right now, I feel like they could definitely reach 10 seasons. In the way that they're making it right now, they're covering a lot in these seasons. You know, there are loads of subplots going on, and there's one sort of big main plot that if they wrap up the Viltrumite War, in this season, I could definitely see that happening. But if they don't, they will definitely wrap up Compendium 2 in season 5 for sure. So yeah, that's really exciting. I will continue to watch. I will probably continue to read the compendiums, read the comic books, and I originally wanted to watch the show to see how the series ended, but I feel like it's going to take way too long to wait for the show to come to an end, right? As much as I would love to do that, I don't think I can physically wait till the end of the show. So I don't actually know how Invincible ends right now. All I know is, I don't know anything. Well, I know that Corey Walker comes back, which is a very appealing thing to me. I love his art style. It's very soft. It's very sort of stylized. And don't get me wrong, I do love Ryan Ottley's artwork. His artwork, I think it suits the Invincible vibe a lot more. And in my opinion, it's better the comics are prettier to look at than the show, but the show is sort of, I would say the show gets the story done faster and the story more impactful, you know, because it's moving, you know, voice acting, obviously going to add a lot more expression to these characters. But yeah, that's the thing as well. If the show continues, what things would I like to see, like production-wise? I said earlier, more violent, more colorful, more sort of realistic animation. If say season 4 and season 5 come out and they have really great success, the budget for the animation should be going up, right? I don't think you should be cutting costs anywhere on the show. I think the comic deserves to have a show that is as beautiful as the source material. the comics, right? And at the moment, I don't think it definitely doesn't match the comics in beauty, right? Of how good the art looks in the comics compared to the show. But, the show is its own thing. I'm just saying that if in the future you want that sort of, to bridge that gap a little bit closer, you can have that sort of, creative freedom to do so, That's one thing a lot of people hate about this show is the style of how they animate it. They call it PNG animation, which I think is a little bit too harsh, Animating takes time. It's frames and frames of drawing, and you want to draw it in the most simplest way. I don't think people understand, especially nowadays. If you look at SpongeBob, or if you look at some of the animated shows, they're all small, simple, and they all have their own style. Style is so important for animation. I did a little bit of animation before. It's really tricky, but if you nail the style of how they're supposed to be drawn and how things are meant to look, you can then draw it 1,000 times over, and it will speed up the process. If you have a frame that looks different from the other one, the style of it looks different, it's not going to look good in the animation, right? So I'd rather have mid-looking animation and it come out in this decade, right? Than it be beautiful and it come out in the next century. Because that'll take ages to have the level of detail that Ryan Ottley puts into his work in the show. It's going to take centuries and decades to have even one season come out, right? And at that pace, they would never finish. I think they're prioritizing getting the seasons out, right? That's what I'm getting from this. Obviously, they're taking their time with it, but they also want to tell the story and, bank the money, right? But yeah, they do take time with it. The gap between season 2 and 3 was insane. I remember it being very painful to be a fan at that time. But I think season 3 paid off, right? I think it did pay off. Obviously they cut corners in certain places with cameos and action sequences maybe being a little bit mediocre. But that's one thing I think the show does really well, is the action and the violence from the comics is done really well. What comes to mind when I think of the action from the comics into the show is that sequence where Nolan and Alan the alien escape the Viltrumite prison, and they both charge at this guy and squish his head. That was really awesome, and it reminded me of the comic panel, and it was like almost exact to the piece of art that was displayed on the comic, right? So yeah, it's really interesting to see those panels come to life in live action in animation. Speaking of live action, should we talk about the live action Invincible? Would you guys watch that? I think that's a silly question. I think anybody who's watched the show, read the comic, would watch a live action Invincible film, right? It would be a film, because if it being a show, I feel like you need to be multimedia and sort of cover animation, comics, and then a film would be awesome. Could you imagine a blockbuster Invincible? What's a blockbuster? Wait, no. What am I saying? A high budget Invincible film starring, a young Invincible actor and an old buff man as Nolan, and like this crazy superhero film and romance with Atom Eve. I think that would be really cool, and I think that's something that we might see if the show continues to be on this sort of level of hype. The thing with the show is people get excited when there's a trailer announced and when there's a new season renewed, because they know what's coming, because they've seen it in the comics. So they're excited to see their favorite panel and their favorite character from the comics come to the show. It's not maybe necessarily because they they like what the show's doing is because they know what's going to come next, and they're excited to see that sort of comparison. I feel like that's the appeal of many of the audience, is the comparison, right? But with a live action project, you could definitely replicate more of the art style of Ryan Otley's hyper-realism. Well, it's sort of stylized cartoons, but it's very sort of realistic, right? The violence in that film would be crazy. That would definitely be an adult film for sure. I think the first film should cover the first season or the first few issues 100%, and then they could do Invincible 2 and then Invincible 3, or Invincible, like, you know, then they could do a movie of just the Invincible War, and then the Viltrumite War, and they could do so much with that. I feel like, you know, eventually the story is going to get told too many times. So maybe they would, I think with the live action though, you could definitely make more changes, because it's, you know, live action, and I feel like you could get away with changing it more. When you're having an animated show, it's sort of like 1-to-1 almost, because one, it is the first project coming out of the comics, but also because it is an animated show, you know, trying to write new parts, which they're doing for this season with the Hell War. It's going to be difficult because you're already got so much on your plate, right? So yeah, that's just a thought, you know, and a live action Invincible would be cool. But then you would have a film, a comic series, and an animated show, which is booming at the moment. It's very good at the moment, and people love the show. Yeah. So that is Invincible, the whole of Invincible talked about on the Nerdiest podcast. I probably missed a few things, but I do love Invincible, and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it before season 4 comes out on March 17th, just because there are a few things that, you know, are different from the comic and the show. They're introducing that new sort of storytelling in the animated show. So it's exciting. It is definitely exciting. The hype is starting to build for this new season. I love the previous seasons. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this Nerdiest podcast episode. If so, share it with your friend who likes Invincible, or share it with your variant, or evil variant, or share it with your father who's an alien from the Viltrumite planet. Share it with Battle Beast, because he probably would like to listen to the Nerdiest podcast. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. But yeah, that's Charles the Nerdiest talking about Invincible Season 4, the future of Invincible, and Invincible as a whole, as a comic book and as a TV show. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from the show, which is my favorite quote of all time. Enjoy it, because it's awesome.
Cecil! Where is Omni-Man? Where is he? Cecil! Are you sure? Where is Omni-Man? Where is he? Where is Omni-Man? Where is he?